What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the live stream. Good to have you guys here. Uh, Bear with me. Sorry, I'm a couple minutes late here, but we are officially started. Hope everyone's having a good end of the weekend. So today, a little bit topic we have talked about this before, but I do think it's something we should kind of come back to and visit, and that is what you should know before you buy a new turbo for your Powerstroke. We are going to talk a lot about the 6 liter because I think that's where most people are changing turbos on their vehicle. There's some 6.7 stuff that we can get into later, but the vast majority of what this is going to be is going to be talking about our 6.0 Powerstrokes and some options for them. Just going to quick set up another web page over here, and we're going to kind of go into a lot of different things on this topic. The first thing we're really going to talk about is trying to determine, do you actually need to replace it? A lot of times these turbo issues people are having are something much cheaper to fix, and then they replace a turbo, have the same issue, hate the turbo, especially when you spend money to upgrade. That's a really tough kind of proposition to get your head around is, well, I spent money to upgrade my turbo and it performs just as bad as the last one that had 150, 200,000 miles on it. When all along it was an intercooler boot or a bad intercooler. So we're going to kind of talk about some mechanical failures that can happen. Also, as you guys are getting in, don't forget to jump in the live stream chat, say hello. And also don't forget to hit that like button as you are coming in as well. So let's talk about the first thing. Man, I need another light in here because this is way too bright when I pull this up. So let's get into some of the common mechanical failures that happen that lead people to believe their turbo's bad when it's not, and then they end up replacing it only to hate the new turbo. So most common mechanical failure that these are going to see that's going to cause turbocharger performance issues comes in the way of, Joe, how are you doing, man? Welcome to the live stream. So the most common mechanical failure people are going to see is going to come in the form of blown intercooler boots. They do not always obviously leak. So we're going to talk, or at least not always obviously have a hole in them or something that you can visibly see. So we're going to talk about some of the symptoms that pop up with this that can be maybe an indication that you have a boot that needs replaced. Oil is probably one of the biggest ones that people don't talk about, especially that intercooler boot coming off the turbo in the valley. If you notice that you have a lot of oil in that valley, more than not, that intercooler boot is leaking, or it has a rip in it or a tear, and you can't always see it until it's under pressure. Remember, these are engines that from factory are pushing 25 plus PSI, sometimes even as high as 30 from the factory. It's a fair amount of boost. So if you have that in there, it's going to really blow that intercooler up. So if the intercooler is kind of locked like my hands, but under pressure, it starts pushing out. Now you can see some gaps. It's going to essentially be the exact same theory as the intercooler boot. So under pressure, it'll start pushing that crankcase vent oil out. Maybe a little oil is getting past the seal or something in the turbo. It's going to push that out. It's going to cover the valley of your engine. That is probably one of the most common ways I see it, and people always ignore it. They think it's a leak from the high pressure oil pump, or they think it's a leak from the oil cooler. A lot of times it's that top intercooler boot. And there's some pretty reasonable options out there that are decent as far as quality boots to put on there. You don't need to spend a ton of money. Let me quick pull up, like, Amazon special for 6.0 Powerstroke boots. And there's much nicer ones than this, but you can get a set that'll do the job, have you on the road for $40. It's not a terrible price. You can spend more and get better. Like Riff Raff has definitely got like the premium 6.0 boots for sure. But if you're in a bad spot, this is a quick fix. Terry, what's up, man? How are you doing? Those of you guys joining the chat or the live stream, don't forget to hit the like button, get in the live chat, say hi, and don't forget to ask your questions either. We will always answer chat questions and then come back to our topic that we're going over. So that's really one of the biggest issues I see with that cause the issues. What's the average change out time, even if you don't see any oil? That's a great question, Joe, because I think a lot of people also feel once they replace them once with like an upgraded set, like Riff Raff is my favorite factory intercooler pipe upgrade kit. They're just super, super nice. People replace them and think I'm done forever. That's not the case. It's a wear point. I would say if you have like 4 years out of a set, I think you should be at least considering replacing or at least assessing how they're doing. Are they starting to look like they have oil on the outside? Maybe that's a sign that there's some starting to be an issue. My stance is really about by like the 4 year mark. You should probably be replacing the boots just to make sure that you're preventing issues. Is it a huge deal? Probably not. If you're towing heavy, I actually keep like a spare set around. When I used to tow with the 6 liter, I always had a spare set of clamps and boots, and I took that on the road with me, just because of how it's coming out of that turbo. It's a tight area, but I do really think about the 4 year mark, and you should be keeping an eye on things throughout it because they can wear out faster. Excuse me. But I'd say 4 to 5 years, you probably want to change them out. Can you go longer? Sure, but you're probably starting to develop issues with them. You helped me pull the trigger on a 6.0 good content. Hey, thanks, man. I really appreciate that. What brand again did you just mention? Riff Raff Diesel is kind of like the premium boots, especially if you have factory intercooler pipes. They are just awesome. I'm quick pulling them up here. I can drop a link for everyone. They do make some of my favorite like factory replacement stuff for all of these trucks, really. Let's see here. Now I will say this, they're not inexpensive. They are quite expensive, but they're that much better in my opinion. So you're talking about $150, $160 to replace all 4. That is not including a clamp kit. You're about $200 when you throw clamps in there as well. Now, in my opinion, they are worth it. I've put this on people's trucks. It is a great one. They do also sell a factory metal side intercooler pipe if you don't have one. You late 04 through 07 guys. I will say this, it's a little pricey. You do get good stuff with it, but it is a little pricey at $228. I don't know that that's worth it. I'd probably be looking aftermarket at $228, as you can probably you're getting very close. You're less than $100 away from like a SoCal billet, and that's a better pipe. I'm not sure what the Bless Performance cold side pipe is, but that is a nice segue here into. I'll drop a link here. Into the next common failure point I see that will cause turbocharger-like symptoms without being the turbocharger, and that is actually the cold side pipe on later style trucks. It's a plastic pipe, and it is garbage. It is, in my opinion, fails almost as much as that top intercooler boot does. So this is the next one that I think is a big area to keep an eye on. The plastic intercooler pipes, when I see them, they get pulled out. If you were to bring a vehicle to me and say, Jared, I'd like to do a build, what would you start with first? I can assure you that plastic intercooler pipe's coming out and you're putting something metal with high quality boots in it, whether that be Riff Raff, whether that be somebody else. Heck, I would take that with the Amazon boots over that plastic pipe. I think that plastic pipe is that much garbage. Now, I do think in the scheme of piping kits, and boots for these trucks. There's some pretty outlandish ones. Like I just see here, Mishimoto wants $200 for the hot side intercooler boots for a factory 6-liter. Like that's nuts. And another $200, $400 in boots. And quite frankly, they're good boots. Their clamps are garbage. So that's double what the riffraff set is. That's I wouldn't go that route. And I do know there's some other ones. I believe Diesel Site used to make some pretty nice ones out there as well. S&B makes some now. This is an area that I really still like S&B in. I'm not a big S&B air filter guy at this time. Their filters are nice. Their intakes are as a whole. Not a huge fan, but their filter itself is high quality stuff. Don't get me wrong. But this is another common issue. Guys will go looking for, I've seen them go even like dig into these trucks, replacing Y pipes, messing with exhaust manifolds, and which can be an area, don't get me wrong. But realistically, it comes to find out it's just the fact that they have a bad intercooler pipe on their cold side. I wish Ford would get away from that plastic nonsense. It is just dumb. I personally feel it's a money grab from Ford. I have nothing to back that statement up factually, but I do feel it's a money grab because they end up on national back order all the time on the 6.7s because they blow so often. Moving on, though, keeping with the air, the intake side of things, there is another problem area these trucks have in regards to turbo performance issues. That's the intercooler itself. I've seen guys replace everything else: turbo, MAP sensor, the MAP sensor tube, exhaust manifolds, Y pipe, and they're like, I still have a problem. And the factory intercooler has pushed on plastic end caps, and I've seen that gasket get pushed out. Sir Richard, I would respectfully disagree with you because you can make this exact same video and turbo performance issues on all of them. Heck, when Cummins went to VGT setups, they were blowing head gaskets worse than 6 liters. Joe, I would say riffraff's durability timeline is probably about the same when I would be considering getting rid of them. Now, one thing I would do is I would inspect them thoroughly, and I might still throw them into the side as like a backup, for big trips if I'm towing or something like that. So if they were still in decent shape around that 4 or 5 year mark, but I wasn't as confident in what they were doing, I would still probably keep them around, but they'd be my backup set. Like an in case of emergency situation, which especially if you start messing with your truck a lot and you're taking those clamps on off all the time. Like I'm always looking for a project on my truck to create content. So I do that a lot. I have found that it's kind of nice to have a backup set. Can you reuse the clamps? What do you recommend? So what I do with clamps, they can be reused, yes. It's not always a great idea. So if you were to buy a 6 liter today, I would actually recommend, especially like say you go this riffraff deal setup, I'd buy their new clamps, complete set for $50. They're not spring loaded, which I don't love. However, I can attest to the fact that they do hold very well. Spring loaded is my favorite, but these do the trick. I would keep my other ones. For just a backup as well. Again, that's something I've done. The Ford OEM clamps are superior to most aftermarket ones. However, sorry, I saw a silly comment. Distracted me. However, they sometimes can be really tough to fit on the thicker boots that these aftermarkets use. You can do it. It's a little bit more of a bear, but it can be done. Don't get me wrong. So that's what I would do. It really depends on the shape of them. Sometimes if you over torque them, that's going to be an issue. Don't over torque them. I think it doesn't sound like much until you actually realize how long it takes. Trying to see if I can quick find the torque spec. I want to say it's like 28 inch-pounds. Yeah, it looks like 27. Recommend for all T-bolts and constant bolts. They tend to have an operating range of 18 to 35 inch-pounds. So yeah. Oh, that is specifically for a Mishimoto kit, but I imagine the other ones stay very similar to that in that range. So you want to be careful not to over torque, because if you over torque them when you take it off the first time, you're probably going to strip it out. You're probably going to need a new clamp. So if I was doing all of them, I would get all new everything and go from there, and everything would be torque to spec for use, and you will not have issues. Make sure everything, boot, turbo, intercooler pipes are all nice and clean and dry, no oil residue. Put them on, torque the clamps to spec. You will not have issues. This hairspray nonsense people say, you don't. I assure you, you don't. I've made over 50 pounds of boost in my truck, and I haven't blown off an intercooler boot because I did it correctly. And that's one of the biggest reasons you see that come up. My argument would be the other issues that plague the 6.0 versus the 6.7. 7.3 intercooler supremacy. The 7.3 intercooler supremacy is fake news. That's ridiculous. It's a smaller intercooler than the 6-liter. The 6-liter intercooler, from a performance standpoint, is actually not a bad intercooler. A lot of 7.3 guys used to drop 6.0 intercoolers in their truck as a cheap upgrade. Especially because the 7.3 in factory form doesn't make as much boost. It's a more reliable overall setup. Now, there's no real reason to do it because you can get cheap all aluminum, if I can talk, radiator intercoolers. I'm messing up left and right, for under $300. So people drop them into not the thicker ones, just the normal factory one, and drop it in. But with very little modification, you can fit a 6.0 intercooler in a 7.3, and it's a nice upgrade over the 7.3 intercooler. Especially now that you can get like affordable ones. I mean, even for some of the performance ones, you can get a CSF 6028, I believe on Rocca Auto for under 500, like 450 or something like that. You can get factory replacements ones for under 300 all day long. So my argument would be the other issues that plague. Sir Richard, I'm not quite sure what you're saying. The other issues that plague the 6.0 versus the 6.7, are you saying they're both bad, or where are you at there, my friend? I mean, like, the 7.3 isn't a bad engine. It's quite the opposite. It's a good engine. It's a little harder to make power with it, and it doesn't have some of the creature comforts of newer vehicles for towing. Like, you have to go set up a completely different exhaust brake to get that feature. Now, it works really well when it does, but then you also have the maintenance of making sure that doesn't clog up and get stuck somewhere. One thing you can't fix is you don't have the transmission braking that the 6.0 introduced to the medium duty truck market. So while the 7.3 is a great engine, it's still like, I certainly wasn't looking for that conversation in this video or this live stream, excuse me. So moving on, turbocharging issues outside of this. So we've really talked about the whole intake system, what can go wrong with it, and how to address it. It's really just basic maintenance stuff. Two of those pieces I would immediately rectify by going to all metal intercooler and all metal cold side intercooler pipe. The boots are going to be an area where you just have to, unfortunately, every so many years replace them. It sucks. That's all I really have for it. It just sucks. But that's why Riff Raff Diesel still sells these things, even though this truck hasn't been in production for in the vans for 15 years and in Super Duty pickups for coming up on 20. So there is that. But moving on outside of this, where's some other areas that we can kind of see before we get to spending the money on replacing a super expensive turbo? Exhaust back pressure sensor is definitely a big one. Um, Even if you have an inferred strategy, which means it doesn't read back pressure, it kind of determines it through calculations of your MAF sensor, your VGT duty cycle, and your boost pressure. It kind of guesses a very educated guess of what it is. So that is one thing that can happen, but you still need a sensor that is properly working. So, and then that tube that goes to it can get clogged, especially you guys that are not like ever taking your truck on long drives, really working them a bit, letting them get hot and then stay a little hot while you're driving. They they will more likely clog your EGR coolers. They will more likely clog that tube that feeds your exhaust back pressure sensor. So keep that in mind. That is one of the next areas that gets really overlooked in these trucks all the time. Now, I replaced that tube once, and that sucked. That was not fun. That was one of the least fun things I've ever done. Some people take pipe cleaners down there. And if I could go back, I would probably have done the pipe cleaner method just because it was a lot easier. Joe knows what I'm talking about here. Changed his back pressure sensor. It was a pain in the butt. You should try. Did you replace the tube too, Joseph? Because that part really sucks. I'm not gonna lie. When I replaced the tube, I lost it. It sucks so much. I was ready to take it in somewhere for a second because I was pretty frustrated at that time. But that is a big area that people overlook, that especially if you have a strategy that reads back pressure, like is actually reading that value, you need to have that sensor working properly or you will run out your turbo. I've seen guys have a sensor issue, go through 2-3 turbos, condemn a manufacturer, and only for it to have been something else the whole time. And that's why non-VGT is so popular, really. It's because guys don't want to deal with making sure their VGT system's working correctly. It's more work, and it does require, being a little more on top of things. Now, I will say this. Your MAP sensor, very unlikely to fail. Your MAF sensor, very unlikely to fail. Both of them are pretty reliable. The only times I've actually seen them fail on these trucks is basically like they were left out. For instance, my MAF sensor on my truck failed, but it's because it was left outside for like 4 years. And then rain got in it and messed it up. So that makes perfect sense as to why that failed. That's not what it was designed to do at all. But all of those do kind of go in. So checking the pigtails to them is important, especially your MAF on your air intake and your exhaust back pressure sensor, because they're kind of like in the engine bay. They can get messed up. Your MAP sensor tends to be a little more like the pigtail tends not get beat up as much. So Joe, that's a good question. What do they use the MAF for? So 05 didn't actually. 05 went to like a more temperature style sensor. More like what you would see if you have a 6.7, they use it on the inner cold side intercooler pipe. It's a very similar setup, but even 6.7s have both. If you go non-VGT, you don't need a MAF sensor at all. So there's that. There's that part. It is used to help determine VGT duty cycle, basically where your vanes should be at any given value, and if it helps kind of determine what the truck will ask for in the boost department overall. So if your MAF sensor isn't working, if you have one of the trucks that runs that strategy, you're going to get your truck won't shift correctly because your boost is going to be messed up. And these trucks don't like to shift well when they're not making boost. So all in all, you need to be a little cautious on that. They do require it, and it's just part of the calculation. I can't tell you specifically what all it is. You can look up the measurements. You can get your mass airflow volume. in like two different not PSI. There's like two different types of flow rates you can read it in. I forget what they are, but you can get them. So it is in the calculation. Now, O5 did not use it at all, which is weird though, because it has a plug for it. So I wonder if you could add a MAF air sensor to an O5, because that would make life a little nicer. Some people complain about how they build boost, that they're just a little different. So SCT, this is one of the reasons I don't recommend SCT for monitoring, is their back pressure is actually off. I haven't heard the subtract 100 from it. I'll say this, depending on what tune I'm running, I can't read back pressure on it, and it drives me nuts, which is why I have a project here that I actually started last year. I'm going to continue this year and actually finish it this year, where I'm going to run a secondary sensor that goes for exhaust back pressure into my Edge CTS, so I can read that value when I'm driving, because it is something that I want to keep an eye on, especially doing turbo reviews. I just think it would be better. It's something I want to have, and I can't always have it now. One thing I do plan to do also is I want to run 6.4 exhaust back pressure sensors. Have become really popular. And I've been doing some research in that. So I will probably, now I will say this, you can't run tuning for a 6.4 sensor if you're running a 6.0 sensor. It'll damage the turbo, and vice versa. So if you have a 6.4 sensor in there, your tuning can't be for a 6.0 sensor. It needs to be for the 6.4. So I want to kind of set that all up in my truck. And that'll be very helpful to me, obviously. But I'll be doing a review of it and everything as well. So, but that kind of gets a little, like, that's an upgrade for some control. I'm not sure how great it will be. Who do you recommend for a new VGT solenoid? So that's a good question. So Turbo Time has the lightning bolt solenoid, which I plan to be reviewing here soon on my truck. There it is, lightning bolt solenoid. Now I will say this, it's expensive. It's $400. Use my code to get an extra 10% off. But still, $360. And that is supposed to be great. I do plan to do a video on it to really, sorry, this was going on still, to do more, but let me see if I can find, I would say this, like, I would initially call Turbo Time and see if they have a factory one that they'll sell you. I don't know. It does look like they're out there. It looks like they're somewhere around the $200-ish one for like real Garrett solenoids, at least what I can tell. There's some cheaper ones on the market. I would not recommend these cheap ones. You will most likely have issues. Maybe they work. Maybe it's just that they're not working as long. Like, I'm trying to find some that might have a review on them to see, because there's some as cheap as like $40. But I have a hard time believing that they're gonna be reliable in any sense of it. So I would say call my turbo sponsor and see what they'd sell a factory one for you, or you could be willing to mess around with an aftermarket one. Can I ask you this? What makes you think that your VGT solenoid's bad? I see a lot of guys that think this is bad, and a lot of times I find it's something else. It does happen. They do wear out. Like, it is a part that can just wear out, especially you got these on the truck for a while. I really like the idea behind the lightning bolt solenoid. I don't think it's for everyone, first and foremost. It definitely looks cool. I will say that. I like the look of it. Um, but I don't know that it's something that's for everyone. Now, this is a new section, so it's not recommended with products like pedal command or throttle boosters that manipulate throttle system percentages, often yield an artificial in the seat response while reducing efficiency. Not recommended with tuning that restricts VGT vane percentage and or causes the trim downshift when applying throttle for demand response by increasing. Some tuning, especially with emissions, may manipulate the vane position percentage range that can conflict with lightning bolt operation. This is kind of why I don't think it's quite for everyone yet. I was just talking with the owner of Turbo Time. What day was that? Wednesday? This past week, we talked. We talked periodically, and we talked about the lightning bolt solenoid specifically. And it just definitely isn't for everyone yet. They are continuing to keep working on it. I think when it's squared away, it seems like a cool idea. I know a lot of people hate on it, but I do think it seems like a reasonable idea that you can get added performance in this department. I just don't know that it's worth the money to everyone. And it still is probably going to need some like fine tuning in some areas. So we'll see what happens with it, but I am going to be testing it very soon. Sorry that really didn't answer your question, but if someone can get a VGT solenoid, I'm sure it's those guys. I'd have a hard time rolling the dice on a cheap $40 to $90 one off Amazon. I mean, I guess you always have the Amazon return policy. There's that. That's always kind of a good setup. It seems to be having less power. All stock 140. Hey man, thanks. Hi from the US. We love our Canadian friends. So, Adventure, I don't know if you were here when I was talking about it earlier, but I think a lot of guys have. When's the last time your intercooler boots were replaced? Because I do think. Sorry, drop something down here. I do think a lot of guys have an intercooler boot issue that's causing the reduced power, and they tend to leak, but they don't necessarily leak until they're kind of under pressure. Like, I use the expression with my hands, like, here everything is nice and tight, then you get it under boost and it starts pushing, and then you get these like small micro cracks all over that are actually pushing, you're losing boost through it. The easiest thing I can say that I would do with you to check your VGT if it's working, I'd get a monitor and pull up VGT duty cycle, and I would keep an eye on it and see kind of like what it's doing. Yeah, Adventure. Before you replace that, I would definitely replace. I'll say this: the premium option is to go get the Riff Raff boots, but you can go with a like even these cheap intercooler boots off eBay or Amazon, excuse me, are actually pretty decent setups anymore. And at a minimum, I'm going to get you an affiliate link here. This is more likely your issue here. Oh, that's weird. It didn't send. Anyway, so Adventure, you might have a couple things that you need to look at. You might also need You probably have a plastic side cold or off your intercooler on the cold side. So it actually is going in. You probably have a plastic intercooler pipe. That can be a problem. And these boots especially on the hot side are known to be an issue. And if they've never been replaced, I assure you, you have an issue with them. The hot side fail all the time. Cold side, you tend to last a little bit longer, but they do fail and cause issues over time as well. But you more than likely are losing boost somewhere that's causing your issue over the VGT solenoid dying. Again, it can happen. It's just not super common. I mean, even if you were looking for a cheap, hey, this will get me through until I find out, this is one of the few times I say it's okay to buy the cheap intercooler pipes. I don't generally like them a whole lot because they don't always have great fitment. They're okay. But if you're looking to just make sure that you're eliminate a leaking issue, it's not a bad way to go. But that is more than likely your issue. And if it isn't, if you might have a few things, it's definitely on the list of things that need addressed. Dryer vent. Joe, do you mean like to like wrap around? I'm a little lost at the dryer vent ducking from Home Depot. I've heard of people putting duct tape over their intercooler boots to like find out if they're failing, to see if like that's able to help keep air in. Sorry, I had to quick send a text message out. But you have a little oil. So yeah, that's actually that's one of the tells that you definitely have something happening there, is that you have that oil under that hot side pipe. Sorry. And it's getting out. You're not holding all your boost. Again, there could be other things going on. That's definitely one, and it's a reasonable one to fix. Joe, are you laughing at me not understanding what you were trying to say? I still don't understand what you were trying to say, to be honest. I'm quick looking up to see what time won for votes here. Tried seeing what's the most popular time for me to do this. Okay. All right, Joe, you had me a little worried. I have really heard of guys using duct tape, though, on their boots. I feel like it can't work very well. It just doesn't seem like a great idea, is essentially what I'm thinking. But I have heard of guys doing it, so yeah, to each their own. I don't recommend it for sure. So we've really talked about most of the issues. The only other main turbo performance issue, and the reason I didn't talk about this as much, is because typically this causes a really terrible noise, and then people are terrified to drive their truck. And that's it on the exhaust side. The most common failure on the exhaust side that causes turbo performance issues is the Y pipe leaking. Now, for some reason, they tend to break in such a way that sounds like a very upset, tea kettle. And that's why it tends not be as big of a mist thing, because it makes this very audible sound. You can have smaller exhaust leaks that only really show themselves when you're like really pushing the truck, like towing up a mountain or something. But that is kind of the last place. That is really like this whole section. I know it took me 40 minutes to essentially talk about it. But I would say most turbocharged performance issues, the actual solution is something we've just talked about in the first 40 minutes of this live stream. It can be the turbo. It can be the turbo, which that can get it. Like, we can also talk about repeat turbo failures, of genuine turbo failures, which tends to be either in the drain pipe or the oil feed line to these trucks. I've never seen someone try to use duct tape on a garden hose, but I imagine it doesn't work either. But that's funny. Adventure. So I would try the intercooler boots first, man, and go there. If you want to get like fancy, get like a nice set of intercooler pipes, that's an option you can go. I love the SoCal billet stuff. I love No Limit. Blessed Performance has their own set. So there's some good options out there if that's what you want to do. Trying to find them right now on the website, because I know they have them. Oh, that is one thing. My turbo sponsors bring back USA made filters for the 6.0. So I'm excited about that, to see what all they do. They're supposed to be really high flowing filters. We'll check it out. SoCal Billet has an OEM boot kit. I didn't realize. Now let's kind of shift gears. We've talked about all the bad stuff that can happen. Let's actually talk about turbos, because I find that I spend a lot of time talking people out of buying certain turbos. So, and I kind of hate that. But it is something I spend a lot of time literally talking people out of these turbos. Because guys really want to look at, like, they think the biggest turbo is the best turbo. The biggest turbo is only good at like one thing. And that's going fast at high RPM. The least amount of time that we spend driving these trucks is at higher RPM. You know, for instance, let me just pick a turbo here. 61 millimeter, their stage 1, great towing turbo. And this is going to count for a lot of the other guys out there. KC, Titan, a lot of similarities here. You know, always read the fine print between each one, but a lot of similarities out there, guys. This is really geared towards towing. Stock injectors, mild upgrade, maybe 155s, fit nicely with this turbo. I wouldn't recommend going bigger than a 155 with this. So the biggest thing to remember is you want to match your whole setup and what you're doing to the turbo. A lot of guys will go buy a big turbo, and that's not a great idea. Like, if you buy their stage 2.5, which is a great turbo, I have it on my truck right now. So don't get me wrong, I love this turbo. but you buy it and then slap it on a stock injector truck, you're going to have to tune for it. You're going to just give yourself lag you don't need. It's not going to run as efficiently as that stage one. If you have 155 stock nozzles, say, relatively popular injector size, the stage one would actually work much better than this stage 2.5 because it's smaller, it's more geared towards them. Whereas this 2.5 pairs really nicely with 190/30s. That's really where this is designed to go. So you want to be careful on how you're picking your turbo sizes to make sure that you're picking them to match what you guys are actually attempting to do. Just like while you can tow with this turbo is kind of a nice, it's not my favorite turbo for everybody. If you're really pushing injector size and you want to still tow, it's a good turbo. 65 millimeter compressor wheel with the 10 blade exhaust side. You can go some upgrades here. You can do a 9 blade, which we'll be reviewing in the near future. But it still has its downsides. It's more laggy. You start to not be able to tow as nicely with it, so bear that in mind. But if you're pushing bigger injectors, this is a good turbo. You can still tow with it, but you're more in this can make 600 plus horsepower too. So it's not really designed for towing anymore. It'll do it. It's not like a stage 3, which obviously it's not a stage 3 because it's smaller. But the stage 3 VGT turbos are much, much bigger. They're not geared to tow at all. I'm not saying they won't. I'm just saying that's not their intent. There's going to be a lot more input from you to make it do it. The stage 2.5 is a good turbo, but it starts to get away from it. The stage 2, those of you guys that are on stock injectors maybe want to upgrade later, maybe not. Stage 2 turbo is kind of a nice all-around turbo. You can tune it to tow well. With stock injectors, you won't get the max benefit from it, but it'll do well. And you can turn around and you can tune it, like you can go to like a 190/30 with this would be good. A 205/30 is a little big. It pairs beautifully with a 175. Either stock nozzle or 30%. This turbo just runs so nice with those injectors. It's not even funny. So that's just kind of like some background on some of these turbos. And again, that information will kind of go over into other ones. I'm going to quick answer 2 questions in the chat. And then I want to spend a little bit of time talking about KC because he's got some neat stuff happening at the moment with his 6.0 turbo. Well, there's 2 turbos that interest me from him at the moment. So we'll talk about them in just a second. Right now, I want to get in the chats. I've always heard the OEM honeycomb air filter is a modern marvel of airflow and filtration. Yes and no. It's a good design, and if you have any other setup, like if you're running an all-factory truck, there's no real benefit to be had upgrading your intake unless you like the looks of it, which most people do. I will say for some reason, I don't understand this at all, but for some reason, people love the factory 6-liter intake. I mean, love this thing. There's people out there that swear. I've heard people seriously argue it's a 700 horsepower capable air filter. It is not. Can you make 500 horsepower with it? Sure. You do start to create more vacuum. You do get a it's where it really shines. Best filtering air intake on the market. It filters so much. It's got good flow. It's not a bad air intake. It is not as amazing as people have made it out to be over the years. And here's the biggest proof of it. If it was, do you want to know what Ford would still be using? That setup. The filter costs more money for people to buy. They could charge more for it. It was a pain in the butt to take in and out. If it was as good as everybody talks about it, it would be still on there. Whereas when you look at how Ford does their air intakes now on the Super Duties, even the 6.4, they're much more similar than what they had on the 6 liter. There's a reason for that. Now they have some different iterations on that as well. But all in all, it's a great filtering one. It out filters the newer stuff all day long. But the problem with only caring about filtration is that you have to start sacrificing flow to make it happen. Lauren, I will answer that in just a question. Just a second. We're gonna get through these next couple questions, so just hang with me, and we'll get you an answer. So is it good if you're in a dusty environment? It's a great setup. However, it is not. There is definitely flow restrictions in that setup. So it's good. It's not as amazing as people make it out to be. There's a reason to upgrade to aftermarket stuff, especially with bigger turbos and bigger injectors. That's one thing a lot of people don't realize. Like, you get a bigger turbo and bigger injectors, you need more air, period, and the factory intake cannot supply it. Do you have to start looking at sacrificing some filtration to get it? Yeah, you do. That's just a fact. Can you still get really good filtration while meeting those needs in most applications? Yes. Do the aftermarket setups require more maintenance? Again, yeah, they do. And just people need to be aware of that. And they weren't in the past. I think that's gotten a lot better. But the factory one, people love it because you can kind of put it in and forget about it. And by the time you remember to put a new filter in it, you're still probably fine. Let's see here. Here's a good one. What's my opinion of the 9 blade versus the 10 blade? So, the 10 blade, in my opinion, is kind of the sweet spot. It sounds really killer. It sounds amazing. It's got really good all-around performance for towing, daily driving. It You lose a little bit in the lag department compared to. But sorry, I keep reading the chat. I'm like a squirrel. Doug, how you doing, man? So, anyway, so the 10 blade is just a great all-around performance. It's not as fast spooling as a 13 blade, but the higher flow I think is worth it for that, and that is my preferred exhaust side on all the turbos. The 9 blade is obnoxiously loud. However loud you think it is, it's much louder. I was dumbfounded at how loud that 9 blade is. Downside, the lag becomes a lot more apparent with it. It just does. People that like the 9 blade are okay with some lag driving around town because it's not a big deal. These tend to be people not towing, or if they are towing, they tend to not tow heavy because you need to keep your RPMs up with it more in order to be able to effectively tow. Some of which you can fix with tuning. The owner of Turbo Time swears the lightning bolt helps address a lot of the issues with it. We'll see, because that's going to be I'm going to do the stage 2.5 review soon. I'm going to then have a 2.5 with a 9 blade sent to me, and that's where we'll do some more reviews as well. Doug, I'm with you, man. I think the 10 blade is a good sweet spot in all around lag to flow ratio. I think the 9 blade starts to just be more of like a show car thing, which if that's what you're into, cool, I'm not going to knock it. But it's not overall the best in my opinion. Lauren, would you recommend a crankcase vent catch can to get the oil out of the air system? So I don't know if you saw, I did a video where I actually gutted the filter of my crankcase vent. You should at least, if you have the later style, it's an easily accessible filter on the outside. I'd say replace it and forget it. Now, if you did what I did, where you gut the system and you're looking to come up with an alternative, like right now, I gutted my system. I just run it into the air intake. I guess to a degree, there's like a degree of a baffle-ish system just from how it's set up, but it's not a true baffle system. A catch can is not a bad idea. I will say this, I would rather a catch can sent back into the air intake, personally speaking, just because I like that cleanup. I don't want to deal with any oil anywhere. So I kind of like the catch can into my air intake. It's not needed. You could do a catch can and then just, vent to atmosphere. A lot of people do that. Joe, that's freaking hilarious. Lauren, but the biggest thing I think people need to remember with the crankcase vent system is it's not this system you can forget about. You need to address the system. It needs something. So whether you want to do what I did and gut the OEM setup, like on the early trucks, because you can't replace them, and I didn't feel like buying a valve cover to then buy $100 filter to go on top, then I'd also have to buy different Fickum brackets as well. No, thank you. I don't want to deal with it. So I gutted mine, hooked it back up so it all is factory, and it's functioning. I think people need to look past, the biggest thing people need to know with this is address the maintenance side of the crankcase vent system. It'll prevent oil leaks in your truck. It needs to be able to vent pressure, period. If it's not able to do that, you will develop other issues down the road. People blame venting to atmosphere, though it did this, this, and this, or leaving it factory. No, the system wasn't working correctly by vent, and it wasn't venting pressure. That's what actually happened in your setup. I have nothing against catch cans personally. If you can fit one in and make it look clean in your truck, by all means. And there are some nice kits out there that if you want to plug the factory intake like a lot of people do and then run the catch can down below, you can make it look clean and easy to get to. You don't think Navistar is the one who developed the OEM filter? Isn't it Donaldson? I think Donaldson is the one that actually developed the filter part of it. I don't know who developed like the full intake part of it, whether that was like a conversation they had or not, but I don't think Navistar had a whole lot to say with like designing it into inside of the truck. The stock air cleaner filter is great, but it is a pain to wrestle out. I will say that. I hate wrestling the factory filter out of there. It's just a pain in the butt. It's a good filter. So there's that. But people need to also take a step back and realize like there's a certain point where you need the flow. I want somebody to make a 4-inch tube that accepts a 5-inch filter on the end. So just putting a 5-inch flange towards the end that would let you fit a massive filter in there, but still keep the fitment of the 4-inch pipe. I think people who this is great. I think people who like 9 blades like squatted trucks. I love that. That's funny. That is just super funny, man. You know what's upsetting? I lost a subscriber since doing the live stream. I have YouTube up as one of my other pages here. That's hurtful. So we're going to jump into our last part of this conversation while my voice is still tolerating it. And that is ball bearing VGT turbos. So KC Turbo years ago released one, like when I first started the channel, like 7 years ago, something like that. I don't know much about it. I know I wanted one really, really bad. And when I came ready to buy a turbo, they were no longer on the market, which sucked. And then they really went away for a while. I believe he even took them off his website at one point. I'm assuming they went back into development. Well, they definitely went back into development because he now has them re-released. I would say this is definitely one of the cooler things that's on the market right now for these trucks is these ball bearing turbos. People say they spool really fast. I'm gonna go talk to someone this week that had a customer put one in, and that's pretty sweet. So I'm gonna get the opportunity to get to talk to him about it and how it drove. I'm intrigued because at the end of the day, you can only spin these things so fast before you're away from, like, if you get the spool up of a smaller turbo, that's great, but I still think the top end is only gonna be so much more. Maybe I'm wrong, but if all else being equal, you can only spin it so much faster before you're out of its efficiency range. So I'm not 100% sure as far as like top horsepower versus the other size, but I would imagine drivability of like the S3R is probably really, really good. Because the one thing I notice is their S2R, which is the same size as their Stage 2 Jetfire, they recommend the same injectors for. So it's not necessary. Like I imagine you just can't get more top end power, but I imagine you gain a lot of drivability with these turbos. That's my theory. I don't truly know. It would be really, really interesting to compare their Stage 2 turbo against the Stage 2 turbo I'm used to from like Turbo Time. Not so much for like competition versus competition, but in theory, the turbo should be very similar performing. So it'd be interesting to see how one did compared to the other. Like, is the ball bearing that big of an upgrade on a VGT? I mean, I would imagine Ford went to dual ball bearing on the 6.7 turbos, like was it the 20 or like 24? One of the newer, I think it's 20. They went to dual ball bearing when they went to the electric. It's an electric motor that actuates the VGT system on them. So yeah, that's kind of some of the more interesting stuff happening right now on these on those turbos anyway. Guys, this is your chance to kind of keep, that's really a lot of what I wanted to talk about tonight. This is your chance to kind of keep things going. If you have any questions or comments on anything Powerstroke related, drop them in the live stream now. Like, I'm happy to talk about them and kind of keep the live stream going if you guys have questions. So get in there, guys, ask away. I actually I was surprised. I was able to keep this, get this going at about the time I wanted to, which was 9. I'm still trying to find like the perfect time to do these. We used to be able to get like pretty big crowds in here. Tug, I started at 9 p.m. tonight. So I'm still messing with the time for these because I'm trying to get it down. I did a poll. I looked at it earlier. I did a poll on the community, or I guess it's just the post tab now of the channel. And I listed, like, I threw some times out there. 9 p.m., 7 p.m., 11 p.m., and then I put other comment below. 6% of people picked other, but didn't comment on what time they wanted. 9 p.m. was the big winner at 59%. So I'm also trying to make sure they're posted at least 24 hours in advance. I will probably actually post next week's in the next day or so, so it's popping up on the channel and like reminding people. That's the goal, because I want to get these like pretty big. Again, this is one of my big goals, pushing a weekly live stream, doing more shorts. Tomorrow, if weather permits, I'm gonna do a video on the Banyo bolts for the fuel system on my 6-liter, and I will be editing the video. I started doing the wiring kit, the big 3 wiring kit. I have my first wire made. So I have the first wire made for that and installed on the truck. I need to just turn around and make a couple more and clean some ground. So we're going to go over some of the maintenance stuff. I'm going to show all the ground. I'm going to basically, each wire is going to be a video, because I want to make sure that I'm giving each one and how I'm putting it together, the appropriate amount of setup and stuff. So that is one thing I'm working on now. The wiring kit's officially happening. The wiring kit looks like the wiring kit I'm designing actually looks really cool. I like it. See if I actually took a picture of it. I don't think I took a picture. Oh, I did. I don't know if this will show up. I'll post it on Instagram later for everyone. That's not really coming up. But there's 2 wires I made. I have a green wire that I'm putting like a brown piece, or not brown, black piece over top to protect it. But I'm doing that because I want you guys to be able to see it as I'm doing it. I actually hate the green, to be honest. I shouldn't say hate. I don't like it with my color scheme. But so to make it easier on the videos, what I'm going to do later, I have wire loom. I'm going to go back and install over top of it, so you actually won't be able to see any of the green when I'm done. But so you guys can see it on video, I'm leaving it on. That's my current plan. Cleaning the turbo, timeline for maintenance. So cleaning the turbo, I have a different perspective on that. One, don't sit your truck super long without driving it, and at least once a week, get on a good road when the truck is up to operating temp and just get in it. Do like the better part of a quarter-mile pull, and that'll put your VGT system through its full range of motion. It'll also heat up and burn a lot of the stuff that clogs the exhaust side up and keep it out. One thing with VGT systems is they need worked every so often. You need to put them through their full range of motion. You need to let them get hot so it burns off any extra soot that's in there. There's always going to be soot in there. You're looking to burn off the crap that doesn't belong. That is one of my, honestly, I did have one sticking issue once, and it was because like I had a little bit of pitting on it. I cleaned it. That was probably at like 150,000 miles. I started making sure that I was like working the truck hard once a week, and sometimes even more. There's a place I used to go all the time that there's just this nice straightaway. And I used to just really get in it every time I was down there, and I never really had a turbo issue again in that part. And now with a lot of that was before I did YouTube. Now with a lot of the YouTube stuff, there's always a period where I'm getting in the truck for a shot or something like that. So I haven't had any issues. But generally speaking, if you tow a lot, or if at least once, twice a week, you say, I really don't care about whatever fuel mileage I'm getting in this truck, and you kind of just get it in there, do a few good pulls, you probably won't need to clean the turbo. Now, if you start having issues, then yeah, you might need to clean the turbo still, but that will drastically keep down on the amount of times you have to pull your turbo, especially just for cleaning. Timeline for maintenance, that's a good one. I think some areas that are definitely wasted, that aren't looked at enough, I should say, not wasted. Transmission fluid change, just like a drain and fill. I think every like 50 to 60,000 miles, you should do that. I also feel that way about pretty much any fluid in the truck. Coolant, especially if you're running Ford Gold, should be looked at pretty frequent. Ford Gold should be looked at a lot. And more like it's a good coolant, it's very maintenance heavy. You have to keep a close eye on it. I would test it at least yearly, make sure it's still good. And I'd probably honestly look at getting it out and going over to something else. There's just better coolants that aren't so maintenance heavy that you can get 100,000 miles out of and not really think twice about it. ELC in my book, Cat ELC rated coolant, the way to go. Gears, axles, like this is another area they're kind of not looked at enough. So put that on with that every 50,000 miles. Like if you want to really, really maintain a truck, every 50,000 miles, you should be changing the fluid in your axles. This is a video I plan to make this summer, and that is actually going over. We made this video originally on Josh's truck, where we did the rear wheel bearings. The rear wheel bearings are a little bit more durable because they're not the same style as the upfront ones. They don't take as much of a load in the same way. They are responsible for transferring the power to the ground, so there are some stuff, but they tend to be more durable. They certainly aren't replaced nearly as often as the front wheel bearings. But I would say, like, I'm still on factory original. I got 200,000 miles on my truck. So I plan to this summer replace my rear wheel bearings and kind of go over everything, make sure the e-brake's working correct. I know it is because I've had to use it. But I would say those are some of the most overlooked areas. Keeping an eye on the U-joints up front and in your drive shaft is also another good one. Fuel filters and oil filters, and their respective fluids, I should say. So oil on a 6-liter, guys, every 5,000 miles, change it. I know AMSOIL is out there. People are saying you can run longer. I just don't do it. I don't recommend it either. It's cheap money in the scheme of things to just replace my oil to keep my truck running nice and not ever have to question it, in my book. The filter should always be changed too, and change your darn fuel filters every 10,000 miles. Especially you 6'7" guys. I know you're out there, and I know you're not changing your filter enough. Change it. You don't want to deal with a CP4 pump on those. At least on a 6-liter, it's not as big of a deal. But you should still change them every 10,000 miles. Like, why would you deliberately let something that you know is going to mess up injectors continue to be a thing? Especially like the filters aren't that expensive, and just go to Ford and buy them. Don't cheap out. You'll thank yourself later when your buddy's talking about how, oh, they lost their, what's it called? They lost injectors. Well, you won't have to worry about that because you replaced your darn fuel filters. Trying to think what other maintenance on a 6 liter besides just generally taking care of your truck. Wash the darn thing. Um, Really just give everything a good test. There's someone I know that keeps talking about wanting to buy another 6 liter. And if he does, he wants to give it to me to work on, like, not give it to me as a gift, but drop it off with me to do some like maintenance stuff. And if he does that, I'm gonna make a video series on it where I just like, here's guy just bought it. Here's what I would do. I think that'd be a cool video series to do. And if he does what he says he's going to do, it'll probably come back to me in a year to do like some performance upgrades. Harley 6.0. I still love it. I love that dedication. I want you to find a Harley 6 liter donor truck so bad. Well, if you found a really nice Harley, it would be cool just to keep it. But if you found like a beat up Harley, it would be cool to swap all that into your Dodge. It'd be the coolest project ever. You might not love that I live at your house if you do that. But that would be sweet. Yeah, the few clean, like the Harleys of those years really were some of the nicest ones they did. Let's find a picture over here. Yeah, all of the Harleys looked really cool. I should say I like the way they look. I don't love the orange and black ones. Oh, that's cool that you have one of the brochures. I love my favorite one is they were black with an orange stripe down the side. I think they look pretty killer. Oh, rear buckets would be awesome too. That's a super rare truck. You just don't see the rear buckets from these. I just found your red flame one. Black, red flame down the side. I wish I could show you it, but it wouldn't. It wouldn't look right on here, but that would just be a cool truck, man. Here's one with blue flames. That doesn't really do it for me. It looks okay. It doesn't look bad. But think about the trend that was set with the Harley headlights. You're probably right. A clean Harley, if it had 200,000 miles, yeah, 20K, man. I even liked the bumpers on them. Like they're just a little bit different, but I think they look killer. I could see me putting a Harley bumper on my 6 liter and getting it paint matched white. It's such a cool truck, man. I'm all distracted now. Well, guys, it is getting a little late, and I've been up since 6 a.m. I work today. I see interiors go for sale on eBay a fair amount. Like I definitely see them a lot more. I don't see bucket seats a lot. That is the one rare option. I've seen people make bucket seats. Like basically take fronts and just put them in the rear, which I mean I guess is essentially the same thing. So I've seen people recreate the Harley. And some people do a really nice job of it. But I rarely see like the Harley with the bucket seats like just go up. That is on the rarer side from what I've seen. I'd love to see one in person again. It's been a long time since I've actually gone and checked one out in person. They're cool trucks. I wonder if Ford will ever bring something like that back. I feel like they won't, with how they've kind of pushed the King Ranch, which, I mean, the King Ranch was still around in these years. Don't get me wrong, but I feel like what they've pushed the King Ranch into, it's just not gonna come back. Oh, here's a picture of the interior with the captain's chairs front and back. That is just cool. Anyway, everybody, I'm gonna let you go. We're gonna get off here. We will be back next week, 9 p.m. See you, Steve. Doug, you have 193 250 that was originally owned by King Ranch. Before the trim package days. I do see wait, did they bring the Harley Davidson back? Or did somebody modify a truck to make it look like a Harley Davidson? It looks too well done to not what's this? That's not a Harley. What is this? It looks like somebody made their own version of a Harley Davidson issue. But maybe they oh, there's a Harley in the brand new trucks. They look actually kind of sharp. The orange is actually a nice like touch to it. Doug, you should send me pictures of that over on the Instagram. That thing sounds pretty cool. But anyway, guys, thank you everybody for coming and hanging out. Next week, 9 p.m. Next Sunday, we'll be back. Everybody, have a good week.